Okay, we can begin. Good morning. I'd like to welcome all of you to this 19th meeting of the Joint Select Committee on Finance and Legal Affairs. The committee is convening its third public hearing today into its inquiry into certain aspects of the national insurance system of Trinidad and Tobago. The hearing is being broadcast live on Parliament Channel 11, and we welcome our viewers. Parliament Radio 105.5 FM, and we welcome our listeners, and the Parliament's YouTube channel, ParlView. We would like those viewing and listening to know that they may send comments via email at parl101@ttparliament.org, on our Facebook page at facebook.com/ttparliament, or on Twitter at ttparliament. Today we welcome officials and representatives of the Trinidad and Tobago National Union of Domestic Workers Employees and the Agricultural Society of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, it's quite a large contingent, I think, going to the second row. I'm wondering, is it just one person in the second row? Well, is it possible for you all to move one down so that the gentleman can come forward? And may we have some assistance so that the cards, the name cards, could be shifted as well, please? Okay, sorry. Thank you. Now I'll invite the representatives of both organizations to introduce themselves. Perhaps we can begin from left to right with Mr. Ali.
Madam Chairman, I would like to introduce myself as Nazimul Ali, Director of the Agriculture Society, and serving on that present board, and been there for the last 6 years. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mohammed Halim, and I am the Vice President of the Agriculture Society of Trinidad and Tobago, more or less for the last 10 years. Thank you.
Good morning, all. Dana Suku, President of the Agriculture Society of Trinidad and Tobago, having been there for the last 9 years as President. I'm also a Director of the Caribbean Farmers Network.
Good morning to all. My name is Ida LeBlanc, and I'm the General Secretary of the National Union of Domestic Employees. And I have been with this organization from its inception, but I now hold the post of General Secretary within the organization.
Good morning to all. My name is Marianne Blackman. I'm an executive member of National Union of Domestic Employees.
Good morning, all. My name is Carla Walcott. I'm an executive officer as well as a grievance officer with the National Union of Domestic Employees.
Good morning, Madam Chair and all other members. I am Ryan Rampasad, a director at the Agricultural Society of Trinidad and Tobago. This is my 3rd year as a director there. Thank you.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves. Now it's our turn to introduce ourselves to you. My name is Sophia Choate, and I am the chairperson of this Joint Select Committee. I will now ask members to introduce themselves, perhaps starting with my vice chairman, who is to my right.
Clarence Rambarat, vice chairman.
Hi, good morning all and Happy New Year. Terence D. Singh, member.
Good morning all. Taharka Obika, member.
Good morning everyone. Cherian Kuchlukoban, member.
Lester Henry, member.
Thank you, members. Now, just so that the viewers and listeners will be in tune with what we are doing in the inquiry, what I will do is I will read out the 5 objectives of the inquiry. The first is to examine the recommendations of the 9th Actuarial Review of the National Insurance Board of Trinidad and Tobago. The second is to examine the implementation of the actuarial recommendations of the 9th Actuarial Review of the NIBTT. 3, to examine the investment policy of the National Insurance Board of Trinidad and Tobago. 4, to understand the trends in income and the relationship to the payment of benefits. And 5, to make recommendations to improve the sustainability of the national insurance system. Now, I intended to invite very brief opening comments from each of the organizations represented here, but I know that the president of the Trinidad and Tobago National Union of Domestic Employees is not here. So who will be doing the opening statement? May I inquire? Excellent. So, Ms. LeBlanc, would you just give us a brief opening statement? Yes, you sit. Just make sure your microphone is on.
Yes. Well, as you know, I had made a submission to the committee, and what we really want to see is that all the other groups, what they call them, difficult to cover groups, who are domestic workers, are covered under the national insurance system. Because for us, that national insurance is a great system, and we want to ensure that it the system now will become more competent to ensure that we are covered under the national insurance, because the ILO Convention on 128 speaks to all these different deficits that the domestic workers have to face, and with regards to raising the age for the domestic workers, we feel that domestic workers, that work is too arduous, because you see, domestic workers don't only clean homes, but they have a lot of other activities involved doing domestic work, caregiving and things like that, which is a difficult work. Because I myself try to help a caregiver to just lift and bend an old patient who was bedridden. And what happened is that I couldn't do it at all, because it have a skill in doing these things. And after, when you reach 60, you feel the effect of these jobs upon your body. So it is difficult for them to reach at the age of 65 to attain national insurance. And what we want to see is more domestic workers covered, because we have a lot of domestic workers who are not registered with the national insurance scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And certainly your initial comments, I'm sure, will lead us to considerable discussion later on. May I invite Ms. Suku to make some opening remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Agricultural Society of Trinidad and Tobago is governed by an Act, Chapter 6301. Our primary goal function is to serve as an advocacy body to disseminate agriculture knowledge and information and to support the work of the government, of the state agencies to the development of the agriculture sector, and in so doing, to the development of our economy. Our board, 26 of us, we are elected annually at our annual general meeting and elections. 2 executives, president, vice president, and 24 other representatives that comes from the cocoa sector, the sugar sector, 8 of each, and 8 other industries, which comprises representatives of other subsectors. Over the past few years, during my years as president, we have been supporting the work of cross-section of ministries throughout this country. We have been supporting the work of the Ministry of Works in terms of infrastructure development, because we see all arms of the state, of the government, being critical to this country's food security. Over the last few years, we have been advocating, especially to the NIB, towards putting a program to ensure that farmers falls into this safety net, this social safety net. In 2013, we would have written a proposal to the NIB and engaged the officials at the NIB towards involving farmers to be part of the National Insurance Program. We were very pleased to know that we will be coming forward before this JSC this morning to possibly further discuss this initiative that we had proposed and see how best the Agricultural Society of Trinidad and Tobago can support an initiative like this, because we see it very important to not just the farmers, but to farm families. Because when you look at the agriculture sector, all they have is what they earn throughout their years of work. There is no social programs, there is no insurance special programs that is designed to support farmers and farm families. So at least we are looking towards the NIB to be one such program and to be a start, a catalyst towards us getting the sector more organized.
Thank you. Now, at this stage, what happens is that members of the committee are entitled to ask questions of the representatives here. And if for any reason you don't follow the question, or you think that you need clarification, or you need to add something, please feel free to indicate that to me so that we can have the fullest discussion possible within the space of time allocated to us. But perhaps I will start with you, Ms. Suku, with respect to your reference to the 2013 proposal which you sent to the NIB. Did the society have any feedback from NIB with respect to that?
No, we would have had, I believe, 2 meetings where we had the officials sitting with us. We had discussions towards our proposal. They had agreed to get back in contact with us, but there was no follow-up discussions.
Well, perhaps you can send us something in writing to say what the proposal was, or what the proposals were, who you met with, and when you last met. That would assist us, because I know that the NIB is expected to return before this committee, and it might be useful information for all of us to explore and to find out about.
Definitely, Madam Chair.
Any questions, members?
Chair?
Yes, sorry.
I would like to ask a question. Okay. Is it that we are directing to the Agricultural Society at the moment?
Yes.
Specifically?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll reserve.
Your question was, I'm sorry, your question was for the domestic workers? Yeah. Yes. Dr. Henry, your question?
No, I was just going to ask Ms. Suku if you have any idea of the percentage of farmers, or if you have any numbers like that, who might be paying national insurance and who are the potential pool?
I could say at this point, from the information that I have, that 0% of farmers is involved in the national insurance program at the moment. But looking at the number of farmers that are, or I should say individuals involved in agriculture, not just primary production, but we have those cottage industries, what we will call small and micro enterprises and so on. When you look at the figures out there, you're looking at somewhere close to 75 to 80,000 individuals. And I think it will be worthwhile for us to get them involved in the program.
Is it just that they have been left out, or is it that they have never thought that this was something they should be involved in? I mean, how much of a countervailing factors are these? How is it balanced?
Well, I think the state have never seen the agriculture sector, the primary producers, as being very important, or have acknowledged their contribution to the economy, and that's why they were never included in the program. And that's why we at the Agriculture Society, having looked on and what is happening and the kind of economic activity that's coming out of the agriculture sector, we would have made that proposal to have them included in the National Insurance Program.
Mr. Baker.
Okay. Through you, Chair, for Ms. Suku and representative of the Agricultural Society. Now, you mentioned that a significant part of the membership are cocoa farmers. Correct?
No, I said 8 representatives on the board are representatives of the cocoa sector.
Good. So we know that there are cocoa-based cooperatives. There's Montserrat Cocoa Farmers, for example, where we're trying to circumvent the colonial legacy of exporting raw materials and importing processed cocoa products, where they're actually looking to directly export, circumventing the boards and exporting directly for it. How has been the experience of that, specifically regarding worker benefits? Is it that the cooperative is in a position to get their workers under the NIS scheme in the cocoa cooperatives, specifically?
Yes, because those cooperatives are already structured. It has a structured operation. So it will be very simple to have those individuals get involved in the scheme. When we had made the proposal, if I may say, in 2013, we at the Agriculture Society of Trinidad and Tobago, we would have clustered the farmers throughout the country. Presently, there are some 86 farming groups, right, geographically spread. There are also commodity associations that we at the Agriculture Society manage. And when we look at the numbers, and that's what I said earlier, when we look at the activities involved within these agriculture associations, we recognize that they being part of this national insurance program, it will have twofold benefits. One, of course, you contribute to the scheme and to the economy and so on in that way. And obviously, you will be able to participate in other activities, other programs that the state may have for its employees. And also the farmer or the agro-processor will also have some kind of safety as they move along, as they become age. When you presently look at the structure of the agriculture sector, a farmer reaches 55, 60 years. He has nothing to fall back on other than what he would have saved. Or maybe he has some very kind and loving children that will support their needs. But other than that, there is nothing, unlike the public officers or other employees coming from other entities that will have at the age of 60 retirement. You have benefits. Farmers don't really have anything.
Okay, just a second. Mrs. Critchlow Coburn had a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Suku, I just needed some clarity. When you speak about farmers not being allowed to be registered under the national insurance system, are you speaking just about the primary farmer, or are you speaking about the primary farmer and workers he may have employed with him?
The primary farmer and even his employees, because if he's not involved in the process, it's obvious that he's not involving his employees in the process.
But the national insurance system makes provision for his employees to be registered. I know at this point, while the National Insurance Act says self-employed, they may not have brought self-employed persons onto the system, but his employees can be registered.
While that may be so, that the system allows for that to happen, who actually goes out there and ensures it happens, you know, because, as I said, there is no existing structure that will ensure that there is that process to follow through, that is mandatory, that his employees become registered and involved in the system.
But perhaps I could interject here and ask, I mean, is it that you have a group of employees, I don't want to use the word permanent, but if you get my gist, that's what I'm asking. Is it that you have a group of permanent employees, or is it that agricultural employees are part-time, or they are used only at crop time? How does it work?
Several kinds of employment exist in the agriculture sector. There are some of them that are permanent employees. There are some of them where farmers will hire labor for what we will term crop time. Like when they're harvesting and so on, they will bring on additional labor. So you have both. You have permanent, you have part-time employees in the agriculture sector.
Well, then that takes us back to Mrs. Critchlow-Cowan's point, which is to say that if there are farmers with permanent employees, they ought to ensure that those employees are registered and that contributions are made to the NIS system. I think the responsibility for that will be a joint one, both the employer and the employee. And perhaps it is simply a question of dissemination of information to remind those farmers with permanent employees that they are required to have those employees registered. So I don't know if through your society this information may be disseminated.
Madam Chair, we have absolutely no problem in assisting and supporting that kind of work. Coming back to the issue with they must, it's mandatory, yes. We agree, and that is why in 2013, we had made that proposal and called on the NIB to partner with the Agriculture Society to support a program like that.
Through you, Chair, for the Agricultural Society, again, the challenge would really be how does so for example, a cocoa cooperative may be able to have continuous employment of a certain number of their workers so they can be part of the NIS scheme, but how, because the scheme is a weekly thing, how can you now get workers who are only called upon as needed to be part of an NIS scheme? Do you have any solutions that you would have proposed in the past that could be taken on board in the document you'll be sending to us?
Yeah. Obviously, well, where you have the cooperative functioning and you have, that will be functioning in an agro-processing activity.
Not to cut you, but I know that, I don't want to mislead persons because I know the cooperative model may not work for most. It is a narrow sectoral approach, you can use that, but yes. So that's one.
Right, but it's a good starting point because it's already there, it's existing, it's registered, it's structured, it has a process of agro-processing activity. So almost all of the year, it's functional because you have harvest time, you have process time, and so on. But it's a good starting point in terms of the individuals who will be hired from time to time. In our proposal, we had discussed lump sum contributions for those persons. Right? So it's, let's say, every 6 weeks or so these people come on. Most of the time, what we have recognized is that if they come on a farm for this 6 weeks, let's say a farmer is harvesting cucumbers. When he's finished, those part-time employees goes to another farm. So it's not like they are employed only every 6 weeks. They are employed by a particular farm for a particular period of time. But most of the time, the labor is not 100% continuous, but there is continuous employment.
I just want to interject and ask this question, not to cut you, but to ask this question regarding the lump sum payments. Because there are so many agricultural workers, which will bring a lot of funds to the pool, what did the NIB, what was their response regarding the suggestion of the lump sum payments?
They were very surprised that the proposal we had put forward. They did not recognize that the agriculture sector would have encompassed all of these activities and individuals and so on. There were no direct comments, and coming out of the NIB, they had agreed to get back in contact with us. But I must say I am not too sure, because I know even the Parliament had difficulty in contacting us for this meeting today. I cannot say since end of 2013, 14, 15, whether or not they attempted to contact us, because the society does not have a permanent address, so to speak, at the moment.
Members, any other questions?
Madam Chair, just through you, if we could probably get a copy of the proposal that was submitted to NIB.
Yes, I asked for a copy of that to be sent together with other information about the meetings that they had had.
Chair, can I make a comment regarding the contribution? Yeah, so my comment is that I believe, I'm not an actuarial scientist, but I believe that if there is a method proposed by the sector that is reasonable, that NIB believes can work, I think we should explore that to its final conclusion. And if the lump sum payments can work and we can get much more farmers coming on board through that method, I think we should look at that. And that is the comment I just want to register for the record.
Yeah, and through you, Madam Chair, the reason that a proposal of such nature was presented is that farmers generally are not salaried people per week or per month. Sometimes their crops are contracted if it's for export or agro-processing. So the sector needs to be treated a little differently to how we will treat other areas of employment because of the way it functions.
What I wanted to ask is, to me, the first step will be to have some sort of database of the workers. You know, names, addresses, that kind of thing. Is there anything like that?
Madam Chair, we do have, I should say at this moment, had a database since end of 13 into 14. We would have had a lot of situations with the politics. And all of our information, including the proposal documented that we discussed, our database, which will carry individual membership of farmers throughout the country, their location, and everything that is required for you to carry forward a program like this. It is there, it exists. However, it's locked in an office space in Shoguanas because the landlord has not been paid for some 2 years and more. So he has seized all of the assets of the Agriculture Society. Although there was allocation in the budget to facilitate those payments or monthly rental, we have not received those funds to pay those fees. So we may have a little difficulty in retrieving that database, which obviously is very vital to you carrying forward this program.
Can I ask how much is owed to the landlord? Would you be willing to share that information?
I can write it in for you, sir. I can submit it in writing.
Okay.
Sure, Mrs. Critchlow-Coburn.
Ms. Danu, in terms of employees who work with farmers, are they provided with a contract?
No, there is most of time a verbal contract arrangement.
So is there a likelihood that there will be a resolution of this impasse with the landlord anytime soon?
I will ask my finance and chairman to speak. Nothing will go ahead.
Madam Chair, this matter has been outstanding since 2013, and we have been all the time, month after month, asking the Minister of Agriculture to assist us, whatever various ministers of agriculture they had since 2013, to assist us in this matter, and they have all been promising to do so, and nothing has happened to this date.
Okay, well, why would the Ministry of Agriculture be responsible for assisting you to pay the rent?
Madam Chair, the Agriculture Society of Trinidad and Tobago, we submit annually our requests to the Ministry of Finance for our allocation for that fiscal year. However, those funds monthly are sent through the Ministry of Agriculture under subsidies and transfers. Since 2013, with the interference then by the then Minister of Agriculture, we have seen where those funds were released to the Ministry of Agriculture but not released to the Agriculture Society of Trinidad and Tobago. We have been submitting our accounts annually to the Auditor General of Trinidad and Tobago. We would have had audited accounts submitted as well. And since then, 2013, later half of 2013 to present, the society have not been released any funding to support its activities. We presently, even our office, and that's why when even yesterday we were asked to send correspondence to the committee for consideration and so on. We could not even have those documents prepared and sent off because we have no equipment operating at the society where it is being housed presently at one of the ministry's building. And we have on staff 4 public servants, public officers. Our secretary ranged 54D, and these people do not have the tools to carry out their work. And the work of us as the board, it has to be supported by the staff at the society. Even our vehicles, which we use the society subvention to purchase for use by the members of the society to attend meetings and manage these 86 groups throughout the country. It's no easy task. Those vehicles are sitting in the Ministry of Agriculture compound. We left it in safekeeping at the Predial Larceny unit in 2014. And the ministry, we have boldly said, have stolen our vehicles from the Predial Larceny compound. We have the documents where we lodge those vehicles, where we purchase those vehicles. We have to account to the Auditor General for those fixed assets. And those are registered as our expenditure. All our office equipment and everything is registered as our expenditure, and we don't have it to show. The Auditor General wrote us 2 months ago, wants to come and do their annual audit. And what do we say? We don't know where we are. We are here today, we are there tomorrow. We can't find, our assets are being held by someone else.
But this certainly sounds like an unsatisfactory state of affairs. Yes. So what about the 4 employees? Do they have an office that they go to every day? How are they dealt with?
There's a building that they go to every day, and they sit in 2-3 cubicles. They do not have the equipment to perform their duties, so obviously when you ask them to get things done, that's it. And these are public officers paid by the taxpayers of this country. So, Madam Chair, if I may add that we at the Agriculture Society, from where I sit as president, and the present team that I lead, we are fully prepared and ready to support this initiative. It's something that we have advocated for, and whatever can do from where you sit to assist us, this committee to assist us in getting ourselves fully operational, I think it's going to augur well for Trinidad and Tobago.
Certainly. Well, Ms. Suku, you have given us a lot of food for thought, and there will be certain, I suppose, considerations given to your contributions, and I'm sure that they will be reflected in the report that we will eventually present. What I would like you to do is to inquire of your other reps who accompanied you whether there is any other matter which they would like to raise before the committee.
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Nazmul Ali, I think Mr. Rampersad wants to raise 2 issues.
Madam Chair, I wish to refer to this document that said, request for preliminary comments, the extent to which employers or farmers of Trinidad and Tobago fulfill their responsibilities. I would not say employers or farmers. I would refer to them as farm workers, because a farmer is his own self-employed person. And one of the greatest factors about getting agricultural representation in NIS is to get the farmer to pay contribution as a self-employed. I have been to discussions for the past 5 years on the same topic, and I thought by now we would have gotten somewhere. Generally, you're looking at the benefits of national insurance, especially when sickness comes, the payment of some form of income. As you would know, from Princestown to Rio Claro to Mayaro to Beach to Sani Grande up to Toco is the rural areas of this country. There's no private hospital that you can even go and pay to get something done. And as I always said publicly, Rio Claro, Tabaquite, and Beach is more dangerous than Lavantil. You might get shot in Lavantil, but if you get a heart attack or you get into an accident, the conditions of these roads to get to San Fernando General or Sani Grande Hospital is way deplorable. We're not going to see anything fixed soon. I would say if farmers had some form of coverage by NIS for the sickness benefits and the death benefits, that will at least give them a little buffer. And immediately, the Agriculture Society, I'm speaking on behalf of the board, I'm sure I'll have my president's support. We would be willing to take the NIS employee who will go to these farming groups that we go to and educate them on the seriousness of contributions to contributing for economic development and for their safety. But you need to address the fact that farmers are self-employed. Farmers are people buy and sell and live off their pocket. They don't keep records. They're very delinquent. But it is our national responsibility that they are people out there. And every life counts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Mr. Rampersad, do you have any comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. We would have heard over a period of time about CPEP in agriculture, right? And, well, we are not absolutely sure where that is at this point in time. But if it comes to fruition, right, our concern is that many of these CPEP workers, because of their limited salary, I think like the average laborer would take home about $90 per day. Many of these CPEP workers also seek employment on farms. So after working for approximately 6 hours or so, they go to the farms. And as Mr. Obika indicated much earlier, there is a pool of employment that we seem to have lost this revenue from, right? And what exactly is in place for absorbing or capturing those payments from those workers then, because these are workers whom would definitely be assisting the farmers, right? But we seem to have lost them, and they don't pay that for that period of time that they work on the farms then.
Well, I think there has to be collaboration with the person who hires them, or the group or company that hires them, and the workers who are using their extra time to have a second job. So I think the responsibility lies there. Would you not agree? And it goes back to what I had been discussing with Ms. Suku earlier about dissemination of information with respect to who is responsible for what. Agreed?
Yes, Madam Chair, agreed.
Okay. Yes?
Yeah. I'll sit here, I'm studying the remark that was made about self-employed people, and they are not part of the program. The thought occurred to me, why can't we make this program for new people who are not involved as yet, voluntary? We know everybody wants to to me, people want to be involved in this national insurance program. They have seen the benefits that the rest of the society gets in being a contributor and getting all the benefits during their lifetime and at the end of their period. Why can't we make it voluntary for these people who want to contribute and want to be part of the system? That is my thought.
And that's an excellent point. In fact, other persons who have appeared before this committee have made that point, and it is certainly something that needs to be considered when we come to write our report. So, unless members have questions for the Agricultural Society, is there any other question for the Agricultural Society?
I wanted to make a comment.
Okay. Now we can move on to the Trinidad and Tobago National Union of Domestic Employees. Do we have any questions for members of the union?
Good day, Mr. Blanc and Ms. Walcott, two persons I am very familiar with from my time at the Cooperatives Division. All right. I have several questions, but I'll just ask one. Regarding the cooperative and what has been the success of the cooperative, the Service Workers Cooperative, what are your current challenges? And do you see that model being replicated across the sector as having many different service workers cooperatives, or your cooperative being the main cooperative for the country, basically, like as an employment agency for domestic employees?
Well, let me start off by saying the purpose.
Sorry, just to add in the context, because as a member of this cooperative, because one of the main reasons you cited in your report, in your submission, was that domestic employees are not continually employed. They may be called in from time to time, so therefore they can't fit within the guidelines, similar to the agricultural workers, but it's a different case, within the guidelines of the insurance scheme. So bearing that in mind, what are the successes of the cooperative here?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that we first started off the cooperative because of these problems. Employers don't want to pay NIS. This is the complaints that the domestic workers will come to us and say. So that we envision, all right, let us start with our own thing. Let us form a cooperative. So you all will be going out there and give your services to people. We will try to get people to employ you. And that way we'll be able to get decent work for you. And the whole purpose of it is because of the NIS. A lot of employers come to me and complain, this thing to do this NIS, I ain't able with that. That's what they tell me. And so in order to fix that, we decided, look, if we have our cooperative offering the services, we ourselves will pay national insurance. So that if you want a domestic worker to come and clean your home or to take care of the elderly at your home, we tell the employers, all right, it will come at an additional cost because we will take care of the national insurance payment, registering them, paying all the national insurance contributions on behalf of the workers so that you don't have the headache. Because really, it have some employers who say they want to pay. But it's so, they have so much on the plate doing when the day come that it is a kind of, it is a challenge for them to do so. So that we took up that, and the ILO has been supporting us from the offset with regards to training, because we want to have trained workers. I'm sorry that Dr. Lovell Francis, the member, who I think is in part of education, in the Ministry of Education, because we also met with the National Training Agency, and we developed standards for domestic workers. So we want now the National Training Agency to tell us whether these standards were adopted, if it was approved, and we want to be part of that to ensure the training of the domestic workers when we send them out to people's homes. Because we very serious about sending workers to people's home, because the crime situation in the country, and besides, you yourself could get, whilst working with an employer, we have domestic workers who said they were accosted by bandits in the home. So we have to be careful too. So we have been getting jobs, but not the jobs that we really want, because we don't only want jobs in homes. We want a contract if we get one. You know, so we have applied to HDC, but we haven't gotten any response. But if we get one good contract where we could employ workers on a continuous basis, I think that will be a big plus for the organization in moving forward. Because our difficulties is with the domestic workers who we get jobs for is on a when-needed basis.
Yes.
Sometimes,
Ms. LeBlanc, I don't want to cut you across, but I think I might forget my question if I don't ask it now. How many workers are covered by your organization?
when you say how many workers are covered, registered?
Yes.
At the moment, we have approximately 500 members in the National Union of Domestic Employees. And with the Service Workers Center, we have 35 workers at the moment.
And are these workers, what's their geographical base? Is it throughout Trinidad and Tobago? Do they come from Trinidad and Tobago, or is it in one particular area?
Well, we have, not in Tobago, but we have throughout Trinidad. As far as Penal in the south area, we have a lot of domestic workers coming from places like Diego Martin, Maraval, areas like that. And then we have in Arima. Because we are based in Arima, most of the domestic workers come from Arima.
What do you do when you confront a situation where an employer or somebody hiring the worker doesn't want to pay minimum wage?
Well, when they don't want to pay the minimum wage, you see, domestic workers are covered under the minimum wage, the household assistant order. And in that regard, we are allowed to go to the Ministry of Labor and deal with the trade dispute, as we will call it. And we're also able to go in the industrial court. And we have two members, myself and another member, who do these cases in the Ministry of Labor and in the industrial court. We are not lawyers, but we are experienced in labor issues.
So it means to say that persons who register with you will certainly have an opportunity to have recourse if there is a dispute, that you will assist them throughout the dispute resolution process, yes?
Yes, well, that is what we do. Yes, that is what we do. We represent the domestic workers, and not only domestic workers. We represent in particular low-income workers where other unions refuse to organize. You know, because they are so vulnerable. You know, it is difficult to organize them. But we take on that challenge to try to organize them so that they will be able to get decent work, because that is our mission, getting decent work for domestic and low-income workers. You know, but domestic workers, approximately 15,000 domestic workers are already covered under the National Insurance Scheme, I should say. But our problem is with, like, it have some employers just don't want to pay the national insurance. And then some employers come to me and say, well, here, I have a worker for 10 years, but I cannot go back and pay for the 10 years because it comes with a penalty. If the national insurance will give us some kind of amnesty, a lot of employers are coming to me to say they will pay. But that is up to the National Insurance Board. But the National Insurance Board has been very critical in our operations, I should say, because they give us training. We could access training from the National Insurance Board because we have a program called Workers Know Your Rights. So they will come into us, we will invite people, those working in stores, working in the groceries, the domestic workers, everybody come together. Usually we used to keep that at the town hall in Arima. And they will all come together and we will invite the national insurance officers who will tell them about the 23 benefits and why it is so important, and their role and responsibility also in ensuring that the employer pay their national insurance. But the thing is, when you go to the National Insurance Board, you get fired because the employer looks up at it like if, you know, like you seeking to penalize him in some way, when really and truly you seeking to get your national insurance pensions when you reach that age, because I have been advocating for that a long time.
Okay, Ms. LeBlanc, I wanted to ask whether in this process, whether there is any mechanism for mediation, because if it is that from the time the union becomes involved, it becomes a sort of adversarial environment where you have to end up in the industrial court and so on. And the person may not want to do that because they want to keep their jobs. Is there any mechanism between that or between those two stages to allow for mediation, for example?
No, we don't have that existing at the moment.
Do you think that would be useful to have?
Of course it will be useful to have, because we believe in dialogue. Because before I report a matter to the ministry or anywhere else, I call the employer or write them a letter asking them to speak with us. And usually some will come and speak with us, and some don't want to have anything to do with the union. But that is how we start our process.
Any questions from members?
I just want to go back, Ms. LeBlanc, to the figure you gave, where you say 15,000 domestic workers are covered. That is on account of the registration by the employer?
Well, that was a figure given to me about 3 to 4 years ago by the National Insurance Board.
Right. And
these are the people who were registered under the National Insurance.
No, they registered, they covered, going back to your word, they covered because their employers have registered with national insurance.
Yes, yes.
Right. And what do you think is a gap? In other words, 15,000 are registered, but how many employers you believe have not registered domestic workers?
Well, I think we could safely say that we have the same amount. Because, you see, some people don't only employ one domestic worker, you know. We have families who employ 5, 6 domestic workers. And they also have those who act in the role of supervisor and things like that. That is how. But, you see, most of the matters that we want come to the fore is that with regard to the domestic workers, who work on a need-to-work basis, those who come and work once in a while.
I don't want to go there yet.
My thought changed, sorry.
I don't want to go there yet. Wait.
All right. You see, most of the problem...
I just want to establish, compared to other workers in the country who there may be gray areas about the ability to be part of the NIS system. There is no gray area, and domestic workers are part of the system because their employers register, right? And the second question deals with the people who have failed, the employers who have failed to register. Now you've offered some practical considerations. I understand that. But that area of unregistered employers of domestic workers is a fault of employers and national insurance. You've talked in your submission about a campaign to get people to register the workers and so on. And you believe that the National Insurance Board should pay attention to registering or forcing the registration of employers of domestic workers, right? Right. I just wanted to establish that very clearly. The second thing in your submission, you've talked about service vouchers, and I was interested in finding out how do you see that working in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, the service vouchers, well, that was a research done by the ILO, and they went to they did the research in 4 countries that were giving out the service vouchers. And I think that is a good idea, especially not for the domestic workers who could be registered, but the domestic workers who can't. Because the domestic workers who might come in today and you don't know when you will employ them again, they cannot be registered with the national insurance. They don't have provisions for those kind of workers. So that is why I talked about the vouchers. And it could be also a good thing for the agriculture workers too. Because these vouchers are bought by the employer from the national insurance scheme or wherever government decide this will be. And on these vouchers now, when you pay in the workers, you will pay them with these vouchers. Now these vouchers will have all the information because they go into the national insurance or whatever department to change it. So when they go there to change it, they will have all the information. So it's not like an employer from a domestic worker could hide now and say, no, I didn't employ that person or whatever, because that is our problem. When we go to the NIB, who is your employer? So-and-so is my employer. Where is your evidence to show that you work there? You have none at all. So the service vouchers will help also in that regard.
I just wanted to inquire. I would imagine that you would come across many instances of persons who are not citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who are doing domestic work. Do you have such persons coming to you?
Hi, good morning. In terms of your question, in CARICOM, we have workers covered under CSME, and domestic workers are part of the CSME category. That is why we had engaged with the National Training Agency to have the certification done for domestic workers. But we've had persons coming to us who have been approved through immigration to actually work within Trinidad and Tobago. And because domestic workers are part of CSME, it means that they are free to come to Trinidad to work. So they were approved in terms of CARICOM as one of the categories of workers coming to Trinidad and Tobago. And once they're certified and they have the relevant documentation, they can come to Trinidad to work.
So it means that they contribute to the NIS system?
As far as I understand, there's a special form that is on the on NIB's website. It's a different form to when you are working nationally, and they are part of the contributory system as well. There is something that NIB has in their system that can register them, and their contributions are then paid into NIB. I don't know what is the arrangement when the contribution has to be sent back to the country. I don't know that part of it, but I can only say what I've seen on NIB's website.
Because to me, it would be a little unfair if they have to pay a contribution towards NIS, but they don't get any benefit from it.
Well, they are registered with NIB, and they would receive the regular benefits as anybody else who's registered with NIB, is my understanding of it.
And apart from CSME persons, what about persons from South America? We have people coming to the country from all over the world because of the difficulties that are encountered in different countries. Do you have such persons coming to you?
Yes, we had an outreach program, I believe about 4 years ago, where we had actually gone into different communities and was giving out package information to workers. We did come across a lot of, a few domestic workers from South American countries. But the problem that we had was the language. We were not able to communicate properly with them. So we've had that problem. We have not been able to communicate with them because of the language difference. But we were not able to help them in those situations.
Well, is there not some way that perhaps through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or something that some assistance could be had with respect to interpretation?
Right, but through our outreach program, what we were actually doing, going into communities and giving out information to domestic workers, we went into communities that had concentrate of domestic workers, communities like, would have been like Long Circular and West Moorings and stuff, and we were actually giving out information and then inviting them to a workshop. But they would not have come back out to the workshop after. So we just gave them the information, but the information would have been in English, and they would not have been talking English. But they did not come out to the workshop. It was a way of getting information out to people and getting membership in as well.
I just want to point out that in the NIB legislation, there's a specific declaration that non-citizens is termed uninsurable employment. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And the CSME arrangements will cover those who are documented, but the Venezuelans for sure. And I guess the chairman didn't want to specify, but that would require, and a lot of these workers being undocumented will not look for registration.
Yes, Chair, through you. Chair, my silence for the past hour and change should not be interpreted as non-interest. I was listening to all the contributions with keen interest, and I want to thank both President Dina Suko and her team and General Secretary LeBlanc. If I could offer a possible solution, because I think we are here now for solutions. I have heard the advocacy of both groups, and you are to be heartily congratulated for your advocacy. I want to especially congratulate Ms. LeBlanc, because what the General Secretary did, she came here with solutions instead of just articulating problems. So I've heard the advocacy, and I think what we need to do, Madam Chair, with your permission, is probably refocus on what we are here to do. We are here to look at the 9th actuary report into the NIB. And I was reading the report whilst listening to you, because I think there are many potential solutions in Section 6 of that report, which deals with the extension of coverage to self-employed persons. I think, if I could suggest, that the whole issue of bringing more employers and employees into the system can probably be addressed in Section 6 on page 83 of the report, where it talks about self-employed persons who are both two categories: employers, sole proprietors in their own right, like farmers, and own account workers, like employees who go for this seasonal work in farms. And also, Ms. LeBlanc, you have maybe domestic workers who may be contract workers or employ or provide services in their own rights, because they may iron one day by Mr. X and provide another service by Mr. Y on another day. So it may be difficult to bring them under the umbrella of the traditional model. But I see many potential solutions in Section 6. And what I would like to advocate for is to turn our advocacy here this morning, look at the data, look at the policy positions, so that we can get the benefits for both the farm workers and the domestic workers. I think one of the things that Ms. LeBlanc touched on was how do we grandfather in employers who already have domestic workers on their staff and who may wish from today to pay NIS, but you have to get them away from the penalties, right? And I think we have to find a way to grandfather in those employers who may wish to comply because social awareness now may want them to comply. So I would like to suggest a serious sit-down between yourselves, both associations and the NIB, to really look at Section 6. I see many potential solutions there. I am sorry to hear, Ms. Suku, that you said that you wrote to the NIB, or you met with the NIB when in 2013. If that is true, then that really speaks to a level of indifference, which I think the NIB should really look at and correct. So, Madam Chair, I just want to recommend Section 6 of the actual report as we refocus back on what we are here for as an area of potential solutions. Thank you very much.
Sure, and I saw people busily writing while Minister was speaking, but I ought to let you know that the report, the ninth actuarial report, can be found on the NIB website. If you go up on the website, you'll get the full report there. So you'll be able to look at the comments in the context of the full report.
Madam Chair, through you again, I know Ms. Suku has her challenges with the Secretariat, so she may not be able to print it out. I would suggest to the Parliament if you can give her a hard copy. And I'll maybe give both a hard copy. I think that will let us be in problem-solving mode.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure the Parliament will comply.
Ms. LeBlanc, the Industrial Relations Act indicates that for the purposes of the Act, no person shall be regarded as a worker if he is employed in any capacity of a domestic nature. I wanted to find out how does that impact your members and what would your union have done in terms of seeking to address that?
Well, from the outset of the union being organized and established, that was our burning issue, that domestic workers are not recognized as workers under the Industrial Relations Act. Whilst they might have the provisions under the Minimum Wages Household Assistance Order that we can take up issues and non-compliance, you see the whole issue is with dismissals. Most workers will get dismissed, sometimes for little things that happen in the workplace. And that has been our burning issue. We were in the forefront with the International Domestic Workers Federation. We were part of forming this federation to call on governments and the ILO to put a convention for us, and we got it. Convention 189 that spells out, together with a recommendation 201, that spells out all the protection that a domestic worker needed. So since that happened in 2011, we have been calling on government to ratify the convention and also to put in place, to reform this, amend the Industrial Relations Act to include the domestic workers. Because if I work at your home as a domestic worker, I'm not considered a worker. But if I went by Kentucky and clean out there, I'm considered a worker. Or even if you was able to hire somebody through your organization, they will be considered a worker. But once it is done in the household, they are not workers.
And I want to go back to my colleague's question in terms of having statistical data in terms of how many persons who may be employed as domestics, not on a permanent or continuous basis, if you have that information, because if it is you are going to go forward, particularly let's say to the NIB, in terms of making a recommendations to consider those persons, we need to know how many persons are involved. So I would just want to suggest that if you can get that information, have that data, it would better support a position like that.
So I wanted to include, because I have been calling on the Ministry of Labor to make it mandatory. They have a register, which is great, to register domestic workers. But if you make it mandatory and ensure that these employers have to come out there and register, we might get more information on domestic workers. But for now, I don't think domestic workers really register. So
I just want to make two comments. First a question to Ms. LeBlanc. There was a consultation on amendments to the IRA. Did your union contribute to that?
of course.
Right.
We are involved in anything that the Ministry of Labor has and invite us to attend. We certainly involved because it is for our membership. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
And you follow the work of the tripartite committee?
Not really. I haven't started following the work because we don't have no paid staff. So most of the work falls on 2 or 3 people's shoulders, volunteer work.
I'm just saying that to say that...
No, but because we have to do that.
Right.
We should be doing that.
No. I'm just saying that the work arising out of that consultation is advancing, and there'd be another forum for discussion on the proposed amendments, the ones which have come forward, which I'm sure would include what you've been advocating for a long time. And then secondly, Madam Chair, just to let the Agriculture Society know that we have a rule in these committees of a line minister asking questions, and that is why I've not asked a question of you. But I want to say that, as you know, the matters raised by you fall within the responsibility of the accounting officer in the ministry, and it has been there for as long as they've been issues, you know that. And I myself, as you know, made the accommodation which you currently have available, and the new accommodation that has been offered to you, I have made it available to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Minister. But Ms. Suku, the accounting officer referred to, are we talking about a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture?
I would assume so, Madam Chair.
Well, who have you been dealing with directly with respect to the resolution of this issue? Is it that accounting officer?
Everyone possible, Madam Chair, within the ministry. When I speak with the accounting officer, she said it's a matter that the minister, is up to the minister. And when we hear from the minister, he says it's the accounting officer. And this is how we have been for the past 3 years.
Yes, but a minister doesn't dispense funds.
Well, Madam Chair.
What is the name of the accounting officer?
Ms. Siu.
Ms. Siu.
Angela Siu, yeah.
S-I-E-W. And when was the last time you had a conversation, or you wrote to her or anything like that?
I wrote to her sometime within the last 8 weeks. I wrote to her requesting a meeting. I have been continuously writing, going to the ministry, calling. The secretary of the society have been attempting to have meetings as well. The response we are getting is that she's busy.
Okay. So this last letter that you wrote, did you have the courtesy of a response from Ms. Siu?
Not from her, but I did have the courtesy of a response from the Honorable Minister.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, please.
Sure.
I can speak for the Ministry of Health. At the Ministry of Health, I do not get involved in awarding contracts. I do not get involved in determining what properties are rented. I do not get involved in the provision of computers. That all those functions are under the responsibility of the civil service and under the remit of a permanent secretary. There is this impression in Trinidad that the minister does all these things. And all ministers are held accountable in the public domain for actions over which we have absolutely no control, and for good reason. You do not want a minister saying rent that property. You do not want a minister saying buy that computer. And I think that has to be made abundantly clear. No minister ought to get involved in those decisions. That is why you have a civil service, and that is why you have an accounting officer.
Well, I think members of the population are becoming more aware of the fact that the civil service have certain duties and functions, and it's time that they step up their game and that they perform those duties and functions in a timely manner, because we have had instances in other inquiries where some of the complaints are the same. I remember when we did the case management inquiry, which was our first, the sticking points rested with the civil service. So I am quite pleased that you have, in a sense, named the person responsible for seeing that this matter is resolved one way or the other. And hopefully some good will come out of that fact. Because if we have persons who are working for the government of Trinidad and Tobago for the benefit of citizens as a whole, we must ensure at all levels that there is accountability to the citizens. And this is one of the ways I think we may accomplish that. So I thank you in particular for your contribution with respect to that matter. Mr. Obika?
Chair, I would like to submit, if it is possible, for us as a committee to seek clarification from the accounting officer in the ministry. Because sitting here, I was totally confused, and knowing that the Agricultural Society is a bona fide champion of an important sector in Trinidad and Tobago. If they are being debarred from access to their property, that reason should be made available to us in Parliament. I believe so. So if it is, we can write to them and make them ventilate what are the reasons for their inaction or their action to delay or to prevent them from having access. We should know to get a resolution to the problem, because the reality is it is not helping Trinidad and Tobago, the situation that was described by the Agricultural Society, in any way.
Well, as much as I would love to be able to do that, I think we are constrained by the ambit of the inquiry which we are conducting, not to say the 5 points that I had read out at the beginning. But I suppose some consideration could be given, perhaps, and maybe we as members need to think about it further. Some consideration could be given to writing to this person to point out that it's having an impact on the collection or the payments of remittances to the national insurance system. So we need to discuss that further when we caucus on the next occasion. But I don't think that we can give, unfortunately, Ms. Suku, any undertaking that we will pursue the course that Mr. Obika very valiantly would like to pursue. Is there any other question or comment by any member? All right. Well, at this stage, may I invite Ms. LeBlanc to make some brief closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I was very pleased and happy when I heard I was to come here, because I am involved with international organization, in particular a human rights organization called the Economic, Social and Cultural Rights Network, which is based in New York. And they are all following me on what is happening with me in Trinidad and Tobago. So they themselves were happy to know that I was coming here today to make this, to present my submissions and be questioned on the issue. And I have to say that I am happy to see this happening, because I have always been advocating to the National Insurance Board, go out there, do outreach programs, let people know how great this national insurance is all about. Because in Jamaica, they do it. They have campaigns where they partner with National Insurance and the Jamaica organization that represents domestic workers, and give them pamphlets and things where they themselves could go out and give to the public to inform them. Because that is what we need to do. Because things have to change. We cannot keep it the same way all the time. So we have to get information out there to all stakeholders and people who depend on the national insurance. You know, because when people know more, when we have more social dialogue and people know more, sometimes they more will tend to accept what you are saying. Because even coming here today to talk about service vouchers, I talk about the maxi-taxi people in my submission. Because all these different people, taxi drivers, because some people hire people to drive the maxis. They have 10, 16 maxis and have people working for them. We are concerned about these citizens, because social security is really to end poverty. So in that regard, I was kind of uncomfortable, because saying, if these maxi men hear me saying that, although I have been meeting with people and asking them, what do you think? What do you think? You know, everybody, the nuts man on the road, what do you think? And I was getting favorable response. But lately, I heard someone come out on the TV and made a remark that I was kind of, you know. So social dialogue will bring everybody on board and together, and all of us watching it from one direction, I think. So that is what I'm saying.
Yes, and we are all very grateful for that, because the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago has committed itself to pursuing the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of those goals is the eradication of poverty, and your work seems to be in line with that goal. So it's highly commendable. So I thank you and your organization for that. Ms. Suku, would you make some closing remarks?
Thank you, Chair. We at the Agriculture Society of Trinidad and Tobago, we believe in partnership. We have seen over the years where we have partnered with other organizations, institutions, ministries, and we have seen the success in those programs. We have, in the past, when we had our tools to perform our duties, we have fulfilled that constitutional mandate. It is unfair to the taxpayers of this country, where you are paying staff and you are paying so much money, right, even to pay a board that is not being allowed to perform its duties. This work that we had initiated in 2013 with the NIB was to support not just the development of farmers, but to actually support the contribution from the agriculture sector to this country's development. There's always been a perception out there that farmers are not law-abiding citizens. We want to be part of this process. This is our country, and we want to work together to build this country. At the Agriculture Society, our work here, our programs where we have proposed, where we have implemented towards the eradication of poverty, have been recognized by many institutions around the world, including the United Nations. And we have a lot to offer. Our board that consists of 26 individuals are very resource people, and we want to make that contribution. We are asking to be given this opportunity to be fully functional to the benefit of the citizens of this country. High food prices, safe and healthy food are our primary concern. And we know that we can do it together as a country. We can all come together. Each one of us have a role to play. And we are ready and willing and prepared as the Agriculture Society of Trinidad and Tobago to do our part in the sustainable development of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you. I have to say that this has been one of the more innovating sessions that we have had for a long time, and I thank you all for the passion with which you spoke and the valid contributions which you made. And I am sure that our report, when we put it together, will certainly benefit from your contributions today. So thank you all very much for attending. I want to also thank the viewing and listening audience, the media, and persons in the public gallery. There being no other business, this meeting is now adjourned.